out of the light, I guess. So I'm Tom. I'm a procurement counselor with Colorado PTAC. So what that means is I basically sit and talk to people and help them understand how to do business with the government. Teach classes, do one-on-one, or go to outreach events, go to speaking engagements such as this. So this is what we're going to cover, a little bit about what PTAC is, what assistance we lend to you as businesses. The 4 essential steps is how we set up things to help our clients. So we have things kind of in chronological order on how to approach the government and to see it from the very beginning clear through to the end of an award. We also talk about how we support all the agencies, the federal agencies, the state and local agencies for you all. So have any of you done business with the government at all? Have no idea. Okay. Great. All right, so we're actually voted into legislation in 1982. Was actually started by the Department of Defense because they knew that there was a lot of talented small businesses out there that could help the defense industry. And so the small businesses just didn't want to go through all the red tape or try to understand what was going on. So they created the PTAC program just to help those small businesses navigate that world and get them injected into the Department of Defense. So PTAC's actually started in 1985. There's one in every state. Okay, so we're state-centric. We work with Colorado businesses. That's what drives our program. We're a grant funding through the Department of Defense, which is actually under the Defense Logistic Agency. So DLA is the arm that provides the troops all of their products. We are a 501c3. We actually started in Colorado in 2008. And we are a public-private partnership. So the state of Colorado, the Department of OADIT, they supply 25% of our funding. Oh, we need to come over here. Oh, sorry. I didn't know if you want. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay. And then the Department of Defense supplies 50% of our funding, and the other 25% is from private donations. So, so we have multiple locations. Our headquarters is in Colorado Springs. We have offices in Westminster, Aurora, Golden, and Fort Collins. We actually cover the entire state. And this is the makeup of our clientele. So you can see up there in the top left corner, 97% of the business we work with are small business. So coincidentally, those that register with the federal government, 97% of those that register to business with the government are small business. So the levels of small business that the federal government sets are pretty high. We work with veteran-owned companies, hub zones, and women-owned. So we have a huge clientele for women-owned businesses. That's kind of the newest set-aside or newest small business program out there in the federal world. So what do? We help businesses, companies, with everything concerning government contracting. In other words, from the very beginning, the requirements, how to get registered, what certifications you may qualify for, budget, understanding the budget processes, all their different acronyms, all their ways to find out how they're budgeting, forecasting, where to find the particular needs. and through the solicitation process. So the government, they have to do competitive situations in certain dollar amounts. So we're there to help support you with those solicitations, how to find the solicitations, and then through the execution of your award of contract, we coach you through all that. So essentially what we are is a coach and a resource, and it's a free, unlimited service based on that budgeting that we have with state, local, and private donations. One of the funnest parts of the job, anyway, for me, is what we call a red team. So when you are submitting a proposal to the government, we'll review it for you before you send it in. So we'll critique it and set it up. All the counselors that are hired by PTAC, we all come from government procurement. That's our background. So I think the least amount of experience we have is 17 years up to 33 years of experience. So we'll get into some of these others in detail a little bit more as we go on. I put this slide in just so you understand that government isn't going to be your savior. Government is difficult to work with. Government is hard to get into. Not trying to scare you away, just trying to give you the realistic approach of really what government has to offer. It's a subsidized to your business, and you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. So this represents all the different, there's 3 sections of government we talk about. So we got your local, so you got cities, counties, school districts, special districts, lots of targets. You have the state of Colorado, 26 agencies, and then you have the federal government. So, federal government, 55 agencies here in Colorado. A little known fact that Colorado has the second highest density of federal offices behind the Beltway. You can see all the different sections of government and how many there are out there. So in that, special districts is huge. School districts, quite a few school districts. But you start thinking of special districts, fire districts, library districts, water districts. There's a lot of them out there. And what's interesting is all of them have different timings of their fiscal years. Different budget cycles, different funding sources. So those are the things that we try to help you understand, because there's particular times that are an advantage in dealing with the government and not. This is a quick outline of our 4 R's, or 4 essential steps: register, research, respond, and retain. And we'll go through those a little bit more detail. So of course we want you to register with PTAC. That's actually how we retain our funding, is by showing our grantor, which is the Department of Defense, how we are helping and assisting clients. I think we're over 5,000 clients that we have currently in just over 5 years. Our clients have been involved in over $1 billion in awards to the federal government, and the state and local too, but most of it's federal, of course, because the federal government's the highest spender of money. Anyway, we tell you all the different places where government posts their opportunities at, such as the Colorado state bids, the VSS, the Rocky Mountain e-purchasing, which is the local arena where people post stuff. And we're going to help you with all the different registrations, certifications, and the federal end is where all those registrations and stuff come into play. So sam.gov is the most important place to start with the registration if you want to do business with the government. And if you get into some of the grant funds and like the SBIRs or grants.gov or any of those, you will have to be registered in SAM. I'll touch bases real quick on the SBIR. That's one of the potential places that you can find funding. SBIR stands for Small Business Innovative Research. And there's actually a site, sbir.gov, that you can go to. I don't have any slides on it because it's not, it's a specialty that we actually help people with. We have several clients that we're involved with. Coincidentally enough, to PTAC, with our clients, we keep everything confidential. Anyway, the SBIR program, there's 3 phases to it. So there's kind of that conceptual startup stuff, and then you bring it into a potential marketing phase, and then you can go out to the marketing. So it's a competitive process to begin with, and it is a funding mechanism, so it's not a loan versus some of the other situations you may have out there. Anyway, we'll talk about some of the small business programs in the federal world, because the federal government, that's where they start with, is small businesses. They always are seeking to do business with the small business first. So real quick, in the federal world, and you have to look at your state and locals are somewhat around these dollar amounts. Under $3,500, they're going to use a credit card. So if you're seeking to do business with them and you're in that realm, you really don't have to be registered anywhere. You just got to be able to take a credit card and know who you're working with, and they want your product or service. Then there's a couple other sections in between there before we jump up to that 150,000. There's a quote arena. So typically from 3,500 to 25,000, the government's going to get 3 quotes. So you've heard that, get 3 quotes. The key there is they get to invite who they want. At 25,000 is where the government's going to do a formal advertisement. So they're going to put that out, place it out there to the public, so if anybody can qualify, they can go ahead and bid on that. So the set aside happens at that $150,000. So what the set aside is they look to set it aside for one of the 5 small business classes. And we'll go through those classifications here in a minute. So they put out an advertisement in the federal world called a sources sought. So that's going to have you basically communicate to the government. It's also a request for information. The federal government is basically saying, hey, small business, we know you're out there. Come and talk to us. We want to know who you are so we can work to set this aside for one of those groups. But there's some rules they have to follow, and one of them is called the Rule of 2, where they have to have 2 or more qualified businesses from one of those small business classes to be able to actually set that aside. The other thing for small business is subcontracting, which could be some of your arenas, especially as a start-out company or a new product, whatever. Sometimes subcontracting is the way to go. Because as a large company has a contract with the federal government, they too have to have a small business program. Okay? They have to mirror or do better than what the federal mandate is for small businesses. So the small business programs, I said there's 5 of them. We're going to talk about the ones, first off, that the SBA administers and oversees. That is the 8A program. So the 8A program is the flagship of their small business. It's a business development program. To qualify, you have to be socially and economically disadvantaged, and if they accept you into the program, you're into the program for 9 years. It's a business development program. So the goal of that is to have them grow your company in those 9 years from where you are. Hopefully graduate you from that before 9 years. The other key point is that a lot of stuff that is in the government, in the 8A program, you get to negotiate with the government before it goes to bid. The next one is hub zone, historically unutilized business area. 2 qualifications: your business has to be in a hub zone, and 35% or more of your employees have to be located in a hub zone. Now, you'll be surprised what a hub zone is. I'm a Colorado native, and when I see addresses and places, sometimes I think, yeah, that's not a hub zone, it is. Or, yeah, that's a hub zone, it's not. It's all based on the census. So the census was 2010, and it's based on what people put down. So they're always trying to do the research every 3 years to make sure those are right, but literally it's a block-to-block decision. And then the women-owned small business is the newest addition to the family. Back in 2010 it started, and there's a woman-owned business and an economically disadvantaged woman-owned business. And the bottom part there talks about dynamic small business search. Basically, it's just another place to register your small business when you're registering with the federal government. No veterans in here? Yep.
If you're economically disadvantaged, what would be like a typical criterion?
Okay, so in the 8A program, economically disadvantaged is $250,000. Your net income can't be over $255,000 3-year average, and your net worth can't be over $4 million. Women-owned, it's $350,000 net income average over 3 years and can't be worth more than $6 million. And those, that's you as a person. Yeah, and that's minus the equity in your home, minus the equity in your business, and minus any of those retirement funds, as long as you're under 59.5. So you can see in the federal the federal world, the concept of small business, now you can see why 97% of the people are qualified as small business, because they have their thresholds are a lot higher. No.
Okay.
You don't have to, but I mean that's the whole drive of our organization, is to help you win government contracts. We're kind of an economic driver. We want to keep that money here in Colorado. We want to keep the job growth going here in Colorado.
So like the woman-owned, obviously, woman-owned small business program, does that mean they give you money, like loan out money?
No. This is selling your product or service to the government. Okay, so there's no grants. Government doesn't give out money. You can go to an SBIR program. There's a few, they call them government challenges, but they don't really give you money. They kind of give you awards. And then there's grants.gov. So, I mean, there's 2 vehicles there that are somewhat outside of the contracting. The SBIR is more contracting than your grants program. So no, sorry. And so anyway, no veterans in here, but we help the veterans specifically. We are connected with the VA, trained by the VA, and certified by the VA to help the service disabled veterans go through all the certification to get them set up. So that's part of.
Is there different classes, like you have service disabled?
There's veteran-owned and service disabled. The key to that is the only true set-aside that the federal government recognizes is service disabled veteran, with the exception of the VA. The VA will do first service disabled veteran, and then veteran-owned companies, and then the rest of the small businesses. That's kind of their pecking order. The other government agencies, there's no particular order. It just depends on the need and how things come out within their organization. So the state of Colorado just recently passed a set-aside also that mirrors the federal government, which is 3% for service disabled veterans. And what's a little bit different though in the state program is that they get a 10% price advantage. So if you know of any service disabled veterans that are in a company and they may have something that the government's going to use, send them to us. We'll help them out. There's a bunch of other certifications. It gets a little confusing when you get down into the state and local. None of them cross channels with each other. They're all separate registrations. So if you're registering for the federal small business stuff, they only pertain to small or federal contracts. State only pertains to state contracts, and your locals only pertain to the local situation. And so that's kind of how those will go down for you. Research. So this is one of the fun things too, is we get to show you the proper places, the proper techniques to research, find out if the government is using your products, who your potential competition is, how much money they spend on it, what vehicles, in other words, which contracting vehicles do they use to procure that stuff. We have a class that we do every other month called Treasure Hunt. So we take about 2.5 hours and we go through all the different websites the government has so you can go out and find all those particular products and needs. And quite honestly, most of it is on the federal side. There's some state that you can do some searches on, but the federal government really has everything wired as far as everything on the internet. It's really transparent. Matter of fact, there's one site that houses every transaction of the federal government, every particular spend. And that's really where they do all their reporting. It's an open site. You can go out there and look at it anytime you want. I think we touch on it in here, but it's called Federal Procurement Data System. It's pretty cool. Yep.
Let's say I research, I find that there's a service that government uses, and they've already got a vendor or two,
Mm-hmm.
and they're happy with them. So I want to get in on the action. How hard is it, or what would be my approach? Because I mean, obviously these other contractors aren't going to give up business easily.
Right. In the government, the one that actually has a contract, or the incumbent, usually has a strong position, because typically if government gets somebody under contract and they are performing well, they have a tendency to hold on to them and keep them, because it does takes a level of effort, one, to go through the procurement, the process to select somebody, and then there's actually a honeymoon period or a little bit of training so once they get somebody that's working well, it's actually a little bit more cost effective to keep them on for a little bit. And that's why some of the contracts in the government are going to be 3 to 5 years, even though the government can only fund you for 1 year within the contract. They have language where you can renew, but essentially they're going to try to keep you on. So one of the questions is, where are they at in the term of their contract? How are they performing? So there's lots of different intel that you're going to have to gather. Do you have something that sets yourself apart from everybody else? Is it a new product? Is it a new innovative product? Does it save the government money? Is your services, so there's a lot that go into that. So that's why we sit down with you, try to take you through all that stuff to help you target or understand what might be the best situation. So it kind of a long answer, because there is no short answer to just that.
Come up and maybe the government, say on something they buy regularly,
Mm-hmm.
periodically, they would have backup vendor, like they don't want to rely on a sole source, maybe.
No, they do pretty much rely on a sole source products.
They don't have like a rule that certain classes of items have to have backup.
No, but the contracting officer will have done his due diligence to make sure that if there is a failure, that they know who to step down to and go ahead and bring that in.
So, I mean, if there was like a fire
Well, see, now emergencies are different. You know, matter of fact, when you register to do business with the government, they ask you if you want to be an emergency supplier. So, you know, so then they kind of take you through what being an emergency supplier is all about. And the FEMA and the federal government, they all have contracts sitting out there for disasters, so they can enact those. So, in that particular case, yeah, there's a whole ton of level of supply chains, if you would, as to who has what. And in the disaster, there's many of them lined up. Matter of fact, you know, we had a lot of the different disasters around here the last few years, and PTAC worked really closely with FEMA, because when they came into Colorado, FEMA is a federal group, so they can't really do business unless somebody is registered in SAM, the system for the federal. So we worked with them because we encourage them, if they ever come into our state or any other state, is to contact the PTAC office, because most of our clients generally are already signed up to do business with the government. So anyway, they did incorporate that into the FEMA guide now for emergency procurement. When they come into the states, the first people they contact is the PTACs, and they look at our client base first and foremost on those emergency situations. Kind of cool. Anyhow, that's kind of the fun part, is trying to get you guys focused where to go, forecast, budgets. You know, the government has everything out there. It takes a pretty good level of effort, though, to sit down and study these things and grab the intel to make things work for you. One of the, right there in the big red says free, is called Bid Match. This is what we give to our clients. I think actually the next page is Bid Match. So, remember I told you about the dollar amount, $25,000 is a formal, so that's where they advertise to the government. So all in government, there is over 2,000 sites nationwide that government advertises formally. In Colorado, 122. So our bid match is basically a web crawler. So based on certain search criteria that we set up for you, it goes out and looks at all these sites. Once they find that right product or service that matches that, it gathers the information up, sends it to you in an email. Contained in that email is going to be the description of the job, and it's also going to give you the link to take you back to that actual site. So it's really a powerful tool, because if you're trying to keep track of all those sites to figure out where government's advertising for you, drive yourself nuts. So it's a free service. Again, we are free and unlimited. Marketing, we're going to teach you who to market to in the federal government and the state and local governments. It's all different. The federal government is real different, because your front door in, or the gatekeeper in all the federal agencies, is a small business specialist. And there's certain ways to talk to them, certain ways to get to them, certain information they want, and we coach you all along on that. Matter of fact, we have a nice little book we give our clients that lays a lot of this stuff out, gives lots of examples, lots of websites where to find and connect with this type of stuff. Of course, you always want to get to your end users and your project managers, because those are the people that actually end up specifying your product or your service. So really, if you want to be successful in the government, you have to target stuff that's a year or two out, not that's coming out the door. Because you want to get into those end users and talk with them to get your ideas and your information into that pipeline. And so we kind of teach you how to go through all that, teach you all the different forms of teaming, partnering, joint venture, all those type of things. And again, the solicitation, there is the process usually starts fairly early for all the government, and once they enter that solicitation period, a lot of times they go dark, they can't talk about it. So that's why you got to work way out in front of those to really get your good intel So they go dark, and so there's a bunch of different steps for all those processes. I'm not going to go through too many of them. There's a few of them listed at the bottom. That key one was the sources sought we talked about for the federal world. And the key to that is they're actually looking for small businesses at that point in time to set aside for. Your state and locals are going to operate a little bit differently than that. So let's see here. Federal government, state, local, it's responsive, responsible bidders. And so that's where we like to say that PTAC clients are going to be responsive and responsible, because they got a coach right there beside them helping them along with everything. This is a capability statement. This is one of the key documents that you want to get into the hands of a small business specialist. Federal driven is what it's about. Proposals. I'm really going to talk about the federal because it's pretty structured. And Section L, which is instructions to the bidders. Section M, which is your evaluation criteria. That's pretty typical in the federal world. But if you look in your state and locals, they're going to have the same thing, but they're not going to call them Section L or Section M. They're probably going to call them instruction to bidders or evaluation criteria, something along those lines. But those are always your key, because the instructors are going to tell you how they want it. The evaluation is going to tell you how they're going to look at it. So the art is trying to marry those two things together to make sense of what it is. And so we can help you through that. We can help you understand all those different things. Red team, I alluded to that earlier. That's something that is really fun to do, because we can help you at least make the first cut in all those evaluation things. And then once you get your contract, we're going to help you with compliance, with understanding your scope of work, your kickoff meetings, payment processes, those type of stuff. We're right there coaching you along on some of the pitfalls, some of the things that you may want to do with the government to help your project be successful and help them continue to retain you. Why do all the agencies like PTAC clients? Because they've kind of had that government 101, kind of been educated, know the processes. Not only that, but they got somebody to talk to in the backside to help them out. So, we keep that supply chain going. We keep everybody that is a PTAC client is usually pretty serious about doing business with the government. So they've are pretty much prepared and ready to go. We'll talk about some of those disasters that happen. We have subject matter experts. So these are guys that attorneys, audit people, just a different list of things up there that they can help our clients out on a I want to say in-kind basis. So they'll give you some of their time for free if there's certain situations. So that's really nice for us. This is our sponsors. So again, we have 25% of our funding is through money donations, or they give us in-kind space or offices. Such a place where I'm at, everything there, they give me the offices and all that for free to meet clients. And social media. So this is new for me and Roger, and we were talking about social media. This is something new that we're trying to push and get out there. And also to let you know, government is trending that way. Government is trending toward that social media, and it's a great place to find some of those government officials that you may have a hard time getting in touch with. So I kind of busted through all this in real high view, didn't get in much detail. So do you have any questions? Yeah.
Let's say, dealing specifically with the federal government, do they have a vendor rating system that
Yes, they
scoring and
yes they do.
decide that and all that stuff?
It's called Peepers.
Yeah.
But it's only on contracts that are over $150,000. And it is, and it's an evaluation system, and so any of the contracting officers can look at it. You can look at your own, but you can't look at everybody else's. So it's only for the government contracting officers to look at.
So when you say 150,000, is that an annual or the whole?
Your contract, your contract.
It could span a few years.
Right. Right. Yes.
So for this step in the process, you would want to have a full business plan already written up, correct?
Yeah, you really should have a business plan and your business actually working. Government, any form of government, is not going to hire somebody that is a startup. Now, you've been doing this for 10 years and you're a new company. That's different. Because you've been doing it for 10 years, you're part of the company. But if you're starting something new and you're a new company, go get some experience for 3 or 4 years and then approach government, because government will not spend money on you.
Question, so they would want to see you having made and sold this product for 3, 4 years, even if it's in smaller volumes?
Yeah,
Just as
Yep.
long as you've been going a few years.
correct. Well, one, government doesn't want to do business with somebody that's going to fail. So typically, if you've made it past 2 or 3 years in your business, your success rate is a little higher. Okay. Plus, they're going to look at you if you've been in private industry and you start your own business. Well, have you ever started a business? Have you ever ran a business? So government's a little reluctant just to give you money because you were starting a business. Some people are very good business people, others are not. So again, that's why they kind of want you to have a little bit of background, and so that's very important, past performance or background from where you come in selling. Now it's going to be different. Like if you get into the SBIR program, it's kind of a graduated thing, and yet by the time you get to that, you're actually marketing to the public if you go through the whole thing. So that's what's kind of nice about that. Any other questions? Great. Well, thanks for coming out, and I know it was a lot of information, and you guys might not be focused in that area, but thanks for listening.